Good afternoon. Welcome to UMFS Live. My name is Nate. I'm the communications specialist at UMFS. This is episode 8. We are excited to be joined today. Let me bring her in. Stephany, who is a cottage manager at our Child and Family Healing Center in Richmond. Just getting the connection here, sending the request, and Stephany should be joining shortly. And here we go. Good afternoon, Stephany. Thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome.
I am very glad to see you on this special day for you. I understand it is your birthday, so please allow me to wish you a happy birthday from everyone here at UMFS. This is much appreciated for you spending this time with us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure that you invited me.
Well, we're glad to have you here, and I wonder if we can jump in. If you can start by giving us an overview of the work that you do as a cottage manager at CFHC.
Absolutely. So I really find the cottage manager role is very unique. I get the opportunity to support both the youth in the cottage and the staff that work with them. And so what that looks like is observing the interactions that the staff and the youth have, listening to both the youth and the staff to find better ways that they can connect to each other. To be successful, to help work through those kiddos' trauma. So it is a very unique role, and I'm honored to have it.
Well, and we are so appreciative of you. And you've been with UMFS for how long?
So nobody's counting, but like 8 months and 5 days.
We talked when we connected, you and I, a few days ago to run through the program today. I was joking because this is one of those occasions where I had never actually met you in person. And luckily, I've had a chance to see you here a few times. But we're so glad to have you and really appreciate. And that's such a unique time to come into any program, any profession, you know, at the height of a pandemic, especially.
It was. And everyone said everything was so different, but it was like brand new to me. And so learning how the company dealt with the COVID protocols, how they kept everyone safe, both staff and youth, it was really amazing to see and to kind of jump in while that was happening and help support that.
Right. And there was so much adaptation and adjustment, especially with your team, with the residential team and the great work that they were doing, navigating something that was new to everyone. So really appreciate all of your work through that and glad that you're with us. But even before the Child and Family Healing Center, you worked extensively with youth and residential. You worked, as far west as Washington State?
I did. I spent about 12 years working in Washington State in the school district setting, working with kiddos anywhere from 3 years old to 21 years old. And the kiddos that I typically worked with either had severe emotional behavioral issues, they had developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and so I got to really use on in that setting. All the way, I then moved a little bit closer to Virginia, one state over, to Idaho, where I worked with adults who had developmental and intellectual disabilities, but also with mental health issues. And so I worked exclusively with them for about 7 years. And really just, that was a residential setting. And so this job kind of like blends both of those skill sets together for me. And so I thought it was a really good fit.
Right. Well, and you know, that's true. You've had so much experience sort of looking at different dynamics and then bringing it to Virginia. But what brought you specifically here to Richmond?
So specifically to Richmond, was my daughter. I have 3 grown children, and she's the oldest. And her husband moved to Chesterfield, and she has now had 2 of my first grandbabies. So I have a grandson. He's about 14 months old, and I have a granddaughter who's 1 month old, and they are the loves of my life. I couldn't be so far away from them. So I think it was probably, let's see, May, June, like 2 months after she had my grandson, I put my house on the market, and here I am.
Yeah, well, it's so good that you can be close to family, and congratulations on your first 2 grandbabies. Hopefully many more. I know that just warms your heart, and we're glad to hear that. Now, what inspired you to do this type of work? How did you get into this field?
So initially, I don't know if I was inspired. I was a mom with 3 kids. My husband at the time was in the military. And so I was just looking for a part-time job. So I started subbing in the school district. And the only sub jobs were with these special kids. Fell in love with them, got my bachelor's degree, got my master's degree. Like I'm all about it now. And specifically what inspired me to come to UMFS was Sarah Burrell. I'm sure you know her. I think your first interview was with her.
Yes, she's going to join me again. She's promised to come back on. She's
yeah,
great.
I had like the initial phone screen with her, and her passion about UMFS. And this was back in July when I had just put my house on the market. And so it really took me 6 months to get in here. I'm working there. I am working there. I don't care how long it takes. Her passion, the mission of UMFS to help change kiddos' lives, like, it was inspiring.
Yeah, well, and Sarah is just so great at really being a cheerleader for our organization, for the program. And she just brings a real brightness. And we're glad that she was able to connect with you. And we're glad that you are now with us. And I wonder if you can talk then about the kiddos more specifically. What we know working in this field is that there's some misconceptions. Can you talk about some of those misconceptions, not just about residential care programs for youth, but about treatment itself, and then we can talk about the young people we serve?
Yeah, so basically, just to sum up, that, it's not just kids living on a campus, having fun 24/7, that a lot of work goes into it from a lot of different stakeholders. The caregivers, the youth counselors that are working with them every day, the therapists, the cottage managers, but also the family members. They do a lot of work. And so I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about residential care. And then as far as the kids go, I think the biggest misconception is that they're bad kids. That these are troubled kids. They're just bad. They're naughty, They are not, man. Each kiddo is a unique individual with special gifts and talents. They just need extra support. They need consistency. They need someone to care for them, someone on their side. And I really think that is honored role for all of us that work with them, to be that person, to be that support, so that they're getting inundated with wraparound services while they're here with us trying to meet their therapy goals.
Yeah, and that's so well said. And just to take it a little bit further, I think what people don't realize when they're from the outside looking in maybe is what these children had experienced before they've even arrived at Child and Family Healing Center. So I always think that's important to remind people. You touched on it a little bit. You and your team You know, you're doing lots of things to try and connect with the youth and the families. And I think you all do a phenomenal job with that. Healthy relationships are really vital to these young people because, again, they may not have had many leading up to the point of needing residential. Can you talk about how you and your team are able to build relationships with some of these youth?
Absolutely. There are so many tools in our toolkit for that. Definitely modeling healthy relationships. I think it's very important, especially for those youth that have not seen healthy relationships. The therapists help guide them. We have a lot of youth that are right in those teenage hormonal years. Helping them navigate their own identity as they grow. I think the therapy piece comes in very much into that. Meeting these kids where they're at, listening to them, validating their feelings, right? There's no bad feelings. We're validating their feelings. They're okay to have them. And then to expose them to different ways, different coping skills, different mechanisms, making those connections in the brain that maybe haven't been there before, and then consistently making that the new neural pathway for these kids. I think that's very important. Spending time with them, like without judgment. I think, you know, that sums it up in a nutshell. Spending time with the kiddo, getting to know them.
You know, people who have been kind enough to join and watch this program regularly now for, I can't believe we've been doing this 8 episodes, but I think I've said this on every episode, and I get to see this. You talked about modeling behaviors. I witness this when I'm able to come on campus, or if I'm taking photos, or even just maybe walking back out to my vehicle at the end of the day. I can see the residents responding to the behaviors that are always modeled so strongly by our staff, and it's just an amazing thing to witness from afar. So I just wanted to mention that again. I see it all the time, and it is so important. And again, this is important work, but it can be difficult. So we talk a lot about the importance of self-care. With that in mind, Stephany, what do you do to recharge when you're not working?
So my new self-care, well, I'll tell you my old self-care. So my old self-care, I love to read. I would just read all the time. My new self-care is my grandkids. They come over every single morning. I go over there every night after work. Luckily, I have a son-in-law who kind of likes me, so he's okay with me invading their lives. But I just love spending time with them. I love it.
That's so awesome to hear. And I know when I was on the call with you the other day, I got to meet one of the kiddos, and it's just such a joy to watch. And then you can just see how much they adore you, and I know you adore them. So that's a great thing to have to recharge. So congratulations again. We're rounding out things here. We're coming up on our last question. So I'm wondering, has there been a particular moment, Stephany, or specific young person that you've worked with that's been particularly impactful for you?
Oh my God, yes. I met this kid working in Washington. So he's not from UMFS, but his lesson is universal. So a 3-year-old kid with autism, a little boy working in the classroom. He would come into the classroom every day and begin to scream for the 7 hours of class. So after about 3 weeks of that, I wanted to quit. I'm like, oh my gosh, this kid is not making progress. I have a headache. I'm not enjoying my job. You know, all of the things that you tell yourself when you feel like you're at your wit's end. And I'm going to fast forward 3 years later by me not quitting, by a team collaborative, consistent effort. This kid who did nothing but scream, didn't eat any food, couldn't wait line, none of those things. By the time he graduated the program, the progress was phenomenal. He could stand in line. He could eat school lunch. His gifts were allowed to develop. He did like third grade math at the age of 5. Like he could read. All of these things that kids have locked inside of them, all of these gifts, all of this greatness, that as adults, I think we just have to have the patience and the consistency. We have to show up every day, and they will shine for us. And that is what he set me on my course for my degrees. I'm like, I'm going to school because he has really blessed my life, changed my outlook, and that bleeds through everything I do every single day since I met that young man, who's in high school right now, by the way.
It's such a great story, and like you said, really gives a lesson that can be universal when you have patience and resilience of your own, and know that the young people are resilient. You can really just see a tremendous difference from the time that maybe you meet them to the time that you have invested in them and the places that they're able to go. So thank you for sharing that. I want to wish you a happy birthday again. This has been wonderful. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for bearing with us through some technical difficulties. We will go ahead and post this video live in 2 parts since it kind of cut us off in the middle. Stephany, appreciate you very much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you. Be sure to follow us on Facebook as well as here on Instagram, and you can always visit umfs.org for more information. We'll be back next week, Tuesday at noon, like we are every week, with another episode of UMFS Live. Have a great day, Stephany.
Thank you.